Part 85. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 849. Half a month later. It's the 15th day of the month. Today is the day for the two elders to preach and resolve doubts. Many people ride cranes in the sky of the fairy mountain, and go to the main peak of the fairy island together as if they are going to the market. On the way, many disciples from the sect gathered in groups and whispered. Have you heard that a weirdo has appeared among the registered disciples recently? Weird, are you talking about Lin Yi? Which Lin Yi? Tisk, who else is Lin Yi? There is only one Lin Yi. I heard that Lin Yiben is a registered disciple recruited by the elders of Chuande Yuan. No way. Didn't you say that the two elders of Chuande Yuan have not accepted a disciple for 50 years? So, that Lin Yi must be something special and can win the favor of the elder who teaches the skills. So what? Lin Yi didn't know what was wrong, so he turned around and ran to Fangyuan Mountain again. When several people were discussing, another group of cranes carried 3 or 5 monks. It seemed that they heard a few people discussing and couldn't help but come over to participate in the discussion and gossip together. Gossip is human nature and instinct. Hey, you guys are so ill-informed. According to legend, after Lin Yi obtained the qualification as a registered disciple of Fangyuan Mountain, he turned around and ran to Yanmo Mountain, where he shamelessly approached the elder. Hiss. When everyone heard this, they took a breath of cool air. Someone counted them with their fingers. I heard that not only Chuande Yuan, Fangyuan Mountain, and Yanmo Mountain, but also Zhoulu Mountain, Baikou Mountain, and Wenjian Mountain have successively accepted Lin Yi as a registered disciple. This? Are these elders so shameless? How can they tolerate Lin Yi's erratic behavior? This is nothing. I heard that a registered disciple heard about Lin Yi's deeds and wanted to imitate Lin Yi's actions. He cast a wide net and fished diligently to see if he could win the favor of one of them, and then he could rise to the top with one step. Qualifications for becoming an inner disciple. But guess what? What's going on? I never expected to hear such secrets on the road. A group of people gathered together, extremely curious. I heard that the registered disciple who imitated Lin Yi wanted to follow Lin Yi's rise and join him one by one. But as soon as he reached Yuanshan, he was shot away by Ren Qingshan himself. In the end, he was hung up hundreds of miles away. He was discovered by a disciple in the purple bamboo forest. He had been unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights and was seriously injured and would not recover. Wow! Outrageous! Awful! Sad. A moment of silence. I hope nothing happens. More than a dozen cranes moved forward together, and the disciples on the cranes exclaimed in unison. They thought this was unscientific. All the elders in the sect want to save face. This is a well-known thing. Once a disciple joins a certain lineage, any disciple who does not follow the rules and is cautious and afraid of offending the master will be expelled from the master and sent back to the handyman class. Even the registered disciples cannot be kept. But who is Lin Yi? How could he commit crimes repeatedly and succeed again and again? Could it be that he is the illegitimate son of an elder in the family? Just as they were about to continue their discussion, a green-fronted crane flies happily with a delicate pastry in its long and narrow beak. On the green-forward crane, there is a young man wearing a green shirt as a registered disciple, with a hurried expression on his face, as if he is in a hurry. SHH. It's Lin Yi. When the green-fronted crane passed by, a dozen cranes gathered together immediately separated and flew to their own places to avoid suspicion. Boom, boom, boom. As the crane's wings rose and fell, Lin Yi's waist made a series of crisp sounds. That's a long list of named disciples' badges. The crashing sound looked particularly dazzling in the morning light. Today is the preaching day for the elders, the black and white sheep. Thousands of people took their seats in the square one after another. They found an open space and sat down quietly, waiting for the elder who was passing on the power to arrive. When Lin Yi arrived, he attracted countless strange looks. In the past month and a half, many people have heard that there is a strange person among the registered disciples. However, this weirdo who was always at work, had everything he wanted, and every elder looked at him differently, which was very strange. Yulin felt that the belt was so heavy that it almost fell off. There is no other way. There are so many badges as registered disciples that I can hardly keep them. Yulin herself was helpless. With the help of Qianbei's tiger skin, Yulin successively conquered Fangyuan Mountain, Yanmo Mountain, Baikou Mountain, Wenjian Mountain, Zhejian Mountain, Zhoulu Mountain, and Tai Mountain. Each waist tag weighs half a kilogram, which is equivalent to 4 kilograms of weight hanging on the belt. He can hold it up, but the belt can't. Today I listen to the preaching of black and white air yang. The day after tomorrow I will go to Baikou Mountain to learn alchemy. 4 days later I will go to Zhejian Mountain to learn how to open a furnace. 6 days later I will go to Tai Mountain to learn hexagram deduction. 8 days later I will go to Wenjian Mountain to learn basic swordsmanship. 13 days later, the flower girl of Maruyama seems to be explaining the key points of the layout of multiple formations. The schedule is very tight. Yulin's classes are fully booked. Arranged properly. If this continues, Yulin will be as busy as a top, with classes every month, almost non-stop. So fulfilling. It's still daytime. In the evening, Yulin had other important matters. Unknowingly, he became a celebrity. Yulin was also helpless. Yulin vaguely noticed it from the way other disciples looked at him. There is no way, he is like a firefly in the dark night, dazzling and difficult to hide. Yulin helplessly shook the heavy belt tags on her waist, chose a corner, and sat down quietly. After arriving at the square, after waiting for a while, 2 sheep, black and white, came stepping on the auspicious clouds. Long time no see, Air Yang has snow-white hair on his temples and remains as charming as ever. Without any nonsense, the two of them chose a classic book called Xiuming Sword Book and began to preach without emotion like chanting scriptures. As soon as you hear the name of this book, you can tell that it is a technique that is biased towards female disciples. Many female disciples' eyes lit up, they listened carefully and closed their eyes to breathe. Practicing within the sect does not mean that you only need to immerse yourself in practicing one technique. Listening to other exercises can also corroborate the exercises you practice, and you can check for gaps and fill in the gaps. This monthly evangelism has another important meaning. When thousands of disciples were breathing out their blessings, the elders who taught the practice would stand by and point out the disciples' shortcomings. This strong learning atmosphere moved Yulin deeply. But after listening for a while, Yulin lost interest and sneaked away. While black and white Air Yang was not at home, Yulin thought about it and decided to steal the house. The last purple bamboo brew promised to Qianbei has been delayed for almost a month. I have received a lot of favors from Qianbei recently, and I should pay them back. After Yulin left, the black and white sheep, who were sitting quietly on the soft futon, opened their eyes at the same time, stared in the direction Yulin left, and sneered secretly. Hey! That kid slipped away again. I really thought we didn't know you sneaked around our wine cellar ban. Want to get Zizud brewing. Now this kid will suffer a big loss. A joking sinister smile appeared on the faces of the two elders at the same time, and their entire faces turned dark. They laid the plan. Their 10-star chess game, even if it takes into account the friendship between master and apprentice to reduce the murderous intent, it is not something that a mere named disciple can break. I'll slap you when I get back. In the square, many disciples opened their eyes unintentionally and looked at the black face of the elder who was imparting the power. They were so frightened that they thought they had made some mistake. Missionary Garden is not far away. On the same main peak. Yulin touched it with familiarity. Before she even entered the door, she noticed something was wrong. There are many more decorations in the yard, and there are a few ordinary potted plants in the corner. After the black and white sheep played chess, they did not put away the chess pieces, but left an end game on the chessboard. The sun was clearly high in the sky, but inside the courtyard, it looked a little gloomy and the light was dim. Yo-ho! The door is open, clearly inviting you to enter the urn. Yulin squinted her eyes and stood outside the door for a while, taking a closer look. Those potted plants, the extra screen behind the door, and the slightly modified courtyard layout formed a confusing formation that seemed harmless. Yulin quickly analyzed the scenery in front of her. But this apparent confusion formation is just a cover-up to confuse. The real killing move is there. Yulin's eyes fell on the remaining game in the courtyard. The black and white chess pieces were clearly distinguishable, and there was a faint murderous intent. You can't break the game if you don't enter the game. Yulin closed her eyes and murmured to herself, Master, what you are implying is that if you want to get wine, you can get it, but you have to pass your assessment first, right? Yulin felt the good intentions of the two masters and was moved in her heart. In that case, I won't be polite. After saying that, Yulin opened her eyes, and the young man's eyes were filled with excitement. He stepped inside, and before his eyes, the world was changing. Above, in the night sky, 10 dazzling stars formed a line. The ground is filled with undulating hills and shadows, lined up in a row, all over the mountains and plains, endless. Kill. A row of ancient soldiers with hazy faces, riding armored war horses and holding halberds. In the hazy mist, the horses' hooves stamped hard, and thousands of troops came to kill. Looks like I need to be a little more serious. The young man had a faint smile on his face, and after opening and closing his eyes, his pupils were stained with blood. 5 blood balls, visible only to him, were suspended in the air. The bloodthirsty disaster one solution. Yulin selected one of the 5 blood cells, crushed it, and patted it on his chest. In an instant, the surface of Yulin's body was covered with a layer of light red blood, like armor and gauze, mysterious and mysterious. Analytical Horizon, open. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 850. A Night of Silence. Many disciples felt extremely puzzled. From the beginning to the end, the 2 elders who taught the practice seemed a little anxious and restless for some unknown reason. In the past, preaching took 3 to 5 days, but this time it was over in just one night. When the 2 elders who taught the practice sneered and flew away in a hurry, many disciples were still sitting in the square, looking confused. Why is it so fast today? The black ram and the white ram are naturally anxious. They originally wanted to hide the purple bamboo wine in the Sumera precepts. But then I thought about it, hiding the wine, doesn't it mean that I am afraid of the tiger? So the 2 elders were ruthless and laid a plan. The wine was right there. Come and get it if you have the skills. They had left all their natal magic weapons in the yard, waiting for the boy to deliver them to their door. In the past, no one dared to steal their wine collection, so the bands they set up near the wine cellar were just for show. No one dares to pick out the elder's wool anyway. But this dog is different, it is too courageous. The 2 of them flew all the way, their breaths turbulent, startling flying cranes. Somehow, when they were on the road, they felt frightened and felt uneasy. Those who have cultivated to their level and have some sense of the principles of heaven and earth, even monks who are not proficient in hexagram techniques, will have some vague sense of destiny. It was precisely because they felt uneasy that they ended their preaching in a hurry and returned home as soon as possible. After a few breaths, the black and white sheep stepped on the clouds and returned to the gate of the villa. The gate of Bwin was closed, and it was quiet and silent inside. The 2 looked at each other at the door and communicated in their hearts. It's so quiet, doesn't he dare to come? Or did he stand at the door for a while, realize the horror of the 10-star chess game, and then run away in fear? It's possible. The two elders released their spiritual consciousness, but there was indeed no one inside. They pushed the door open and entered. The chess pieces on the chessboard were still there, untouched. Etc. There seems to be a note left on the chessboard. There was a thoughtful message written in a scrawled handwriting on it. Thank you to the two masters for their strict assessment. The level of the chess game is superb, but the disciple is not talented and struggles to get through the battle. As for the reward, the disciple shamelessly took it away. I specially left 2 bottles. I hope the master will continue to work hard next time and be merciful. Don't give in. Disciple embarrassed, Lin Yi left a message. The implication is, dare to do it next time. Phew. The 2 elders of Gongyang suddenly turned into a gust of wind and broke into the wine cellar. In the wine cellar, the 7 bottles of Zizuniang were specially displayed in the display window. 2 bottles were missing last time, and 3 bottles were missing this time. In an instant, the eyes of the 2 elders went dark at the same time, their hearts felt stuffy, their throats were fishy and sweet, and a mouthful of old blood welled up in their hearts. This time, the wool is almost gone. Not long ago. Handyman class. Chen Bei stared at the 3 bottles of extremely well-preserved purple bamboo wine in front of him, his mouth twitching. I'm just talking, do you really dare to borrow it? Ahem, there's nothing I can do about what I promised. How dare you? Chen Bei seemed angry, but he was faster than anyone else. He swept away the 3 sections of sealed purple bamboo with his big hand. He originally wanted to open a bottle and drink together, which was interesting, but Yilin refused. This Yenchan Laojiao tastes good, but the alcohol is too strong. Yilin is very busy at night and doesn't want to experience the taste of a hangover. Chen Bei said it was a pity, but the grin on his lips betrayed his mood. After putting away 3 bottles of Jiazizizu brewing, Chen Bei secretly wondered, and then said it out, logically speaking, those 2 stubborn sheep were stolen once. They should have tightened the ban or hid the wine. How come you got it again? Yilin smiled bitterly and said, it has indeed been strengthened. They set up a strange chess game in the yard. It took me almost 2 hours to get out. What? 10-star chess game? Are they actually using it to defend you? In the narrow wooden house, Chen Bei stood up in shock when he heard this, but then he changed his mind and thought, no, what should be surprising now is not that Gongyang Erlao used the 10-star chess game to deal with Lin Yi, a mere registered disciple, but how could this Lin Yi break through the 10-star chess game and steal 3 bottles of purple bamboo brew? Yilin did not appreciate Chen Bei's surprise. She recalled the mystery of the chess game and said to herself, although the chess game is huge, it lacks killing power. It should be reserved for the main force. And you all seem to have a bad habit in your layout. Like leave a back door, no, leave a way out. After a little observation, I found it. There are many traps along the way, which makes me a little worried. If it were me setting up the formation. Nonsense. Before Chen Bei heard what Yilin said, he knocked hard on Yilin's forehead with his bent fingers. There was a bang. Yilin's forehead was not red or swollen, and it felt wrong. Chen Bei was stunned for a moment, but he didn't think much about it and reprimanded, for the formation technique, we borrow the aura of heaven and earth, and fight for destiny. If we do anything wrong, it will harm the harmony of heaven and earth, and sooner or later it will backfire on us. Really, Yilin thought thoughtfully. Furthermore, do you know why monks always leave a glimmer of hope when setting up formations? Chen Bei asked with a straight face. Since we were talking about it, Chen Bei didn't mind making a few pointers. Why? Arrays are dead, people are alive. If one day, you unintentionally set up a killing array, and you accidentally break into it, or your friends accidentally enter the killing array, what should you do? Good. Yulin was stunned and vaguely understood what Chen Bei said about leaving a thin line in everything. The two chatted for a few more words, and when they talked about Yulin's troubles in the door as a registered disciple, Chen Bei shook his head and sighed, saying that it was a pity. I don't know what's the pity. Yulin wondered how happy she was. This may be the so-called generation gap. Yulin couldn't explain it. At the end, Chen Bei suddenly squinted his eyes, took a closer look at Yulin's pulse gate. Well, how come your cultivation level has retreated from the 8th level to the 7th level? Have you been slacking off recently? Chen Bei's face turned dark when he saw that Yulin's cultivation was not advancing but retreating. Yulin smiled, did not explain, casually prevaricated a few words, and left the handyman class amidst Chen Bei's curses. Now it seems that the only thing missing is the identity of a registered disciple of Spirit Beast Mountain. Yulin took a few steps, thinking about whether to take down the registered disciples of Spirit Beast Mountain and collect a Grand Slam. But Yulin was not very interested in the technique of taming spiritual beasts. Xiaoqing, Xiaoqing, Xiaoqing. Yulin shouted loudly at night, and her voice echoed far away. Not long after, a beautiful female crane flew towards Yulin with a happy expression. No, Yulin easily tamed this unruly crane. Simple. This green-breasted crane is the one that is particularly destined to Yulin. Xiaoqing refused at first, but from the moment Yulin took out the soul food, Xiaoqing fell in love and became Yulin's exclusive car, no longer a bus. After Xiaoqing sent Yulin to Fangyuan Mountain, she lay down outside the wooden house, licking her wings comfortably and contentedly. Yulin threw a piece of 100 flowers dumpling over. Xiaoqing's eyes lit up, she stretched her neck, skillfully put the beiwa dumpling into her beak, and tasted the taste carefully. Xiaoqing, guard the door for me. If anyone dares to break in, bite him. Xiaoqing nodded quickly and agreed while biting the dumpling. Yulin returned to the wooden house where he lived alone, and after looking around for a while, he made an unexpected discovery. Someone broke in while he was away. Although the other party didn't take anything away, in fact, there was nothing to steal in his small shabby room, and the signs of the break-in were perfectly handled, but Yulin still discovered it. I went to steal other people's homes, but my own home was robbed. Yulin didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and she wasn't too angry. She just wondered who was so shameless and broke into people's houses. In front of the door, Yulin squinted his eyes and thought for a while. Soon, he had a preliminary guess in his mind. Shaking his head and smiling, Yulin laid the mines outside and set up a few more magic circles just in case. Then he extinguished the oil lamp and patted his chest. Without any delay, his spirit got into the center of his eyebrows and entered again. Pivot. In the hub. The sky is still filled with yellow sand, there is a tornado in the distance, and the spiritual sea is still the small lake. The white square rotates on the lake, the two small windows are closed tightly and silently, and the three mother spirits evolve independently in their respective spiritual residences. The only difference from before is that, above the white Rubik's Cube, there is a piece of colorful and incomplete white light, which has not yet been formed, like unfinished building blocks, each in its own camp, floating on one side. If you use a magnifying glass to look at the flowing parts, ties, and fragments, you can definitely find that these broken parts, ties, and fragments are all composed of the two numbers 1 and 0. The composition exudes a high-end scientific charm. After Yulin arrived, the bat hanging upside down on the coconut tree slowly opened its scarlet eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 851. You're back. The bat yawned and flew down from the tree. Yulin rolled her eyes. Zindao, this is my territory. But you overshadow the guest, dominate the mountain, and act like a welcome as if you are the master. What's going on? Have you slept for 13 years, so much so that you have completely forgotten that you are the outsider now? Of course, Yilin only dared to think about this idea in her heart, but she dared not say it out loud. He was afraid that Green would have any objections. One of the clones of this big boss lives here in the form of a bat. Although Yilin doesn't know whether it is a blessing or a curse to be dependent on a being of this level, but since he cannot get rid of it, Yilin can only let Green lead on. When he becomes more familiar with the use of pivot, he might be able to collect rent from Green. Yilin suddenly thought of Pangenji, who had multiple personalities. Perhaps, there might be other people living in Pangenji's hub, which is why he became crazy. The bat flapped its wings next to Yilin. Yilin started today's work. He stretched out his fingers, which were filled with light, and wrote slowly among the parts. Every time Yilin writes a stroke, there is a symbol, either 1 or 0, which condenses into semi-substance in the void and falls into the pile of broken parts. Green watched quietly and didn't say much, but there seemed to be an emotion called curiosity in his flashing eyes. Time passed bit by bit. Yilin sometimes writes, sometimes meditates, sometimes erases some changes, and the progress is slow. He already knows how to accomplish the true Dharma of Ishvara. The prototype of the free method really took shape in Yilin's imagination. He has been stuck in misunderstandings in the past. Whether it's crystal patterns, magic, supreme spells, or the formation skills he is currently learning. These systems have already formed their own mature theories. Yilin dare not say that it is impossible to forcibly combine them, but it is too difficult. Yilin's steps and thoughts were suddenly too big, and it was easy for her to get hurt. But Chen Bei's words accidentally woke him up. Going too fast may not be a good thing. Looking back, Yilin indeed made a new discovery. Since it is too difficult to integrate the already formed systems, why doesn't he restore these systems to their original appearance, and then when he wants to use them, he can rearrange them and take them out? The principle is simple. Give a few examples. Assuming that each system is a different language, and it is almost impossible to forcibly combine these languages into a book, then Yilin only needs to do one thing. That is to split these languages into letters, or even into the most primitive strokes, or ink dots, and then rewrite these strokes and ink dots into books. In this way, the wall of language can be bypassed. Obstacles, smooth and unimpeded. What he is doing now is to use the form of code to redecompose each part of magic, crystal patterns, supreme flow spells, and formation techniques into the most original codes, and then use them in the spiritual world bit by bit. The ditty is written together in the form of this imprint. When Yilin wants to use something, she only needs to rearrange the scattered codons to use the corresponding spell. When the code in front of him is completed, he doesn't even need to spend time constructing spells in the future. He can make moves with just a thought. Abbreviation, follow your words. Thinking about it, Yilin was still a little excited. At first Green asked curiously, "Why do you think of 1 and 0 dot?" Yilin couldn't explain why. He always felt that his birth, his connection with Ling Yi, and the two numbers accompanying their births must have special meaning. Sure enough, Yilin succeeded. He was getting better. After a few days of work, Yilin successfully redrawn all the systems using a line composed of two numbers 1 and 0 that could barely be seen clearly with a magnifying glass. Everything he understands can eventually be systematically analyzed using science. Perhaps, this is also due to the help of 11 Paradise. After their apostles registered, all their powers were digitized. Perhaps it was precisely because of this special digitized state that he could successfully transfer to his soul. The hub, like writing a program, truly creates a power system that is completely of its own. You don't seem to know what you want to do. Green stared at the irregularly shaped code and chuckled. Nonsense, if I understand, I won't have such a headache. In fact, Yulin wants to make the collection of codons in front of her into a ball shape, such as Yulin's ball or something, which is simple and crude, can be smashed when picked up, and is convenient and easy to use. How about? Bat's narrow scarlet eyes narrowed. How about making it into the shape of a throne? Throne. Yulin suddenly paused with his bare fingers. He looked at Green strangely, wondering why this big boss came up with his idea on a whim. The bat rolled up its wings and said, "Don't worry about what I said casually," he said slowly. "Don't you realize that in your heart, all appearances have meanings? This sea, this tree, this grass, that flower that is about to wither." Yulin was thoughtful. "The throne is power." Green's cute little wings drew a red arc of light in front of Yulin, and a crooked seed pattern flashed in front of Yulin. "To tell you the truth, in fact, I have it too." Green's tone made Yulin feel that it was using a tone of "I have $10" to calmly describe the fact that I don't have to pretend, I am actually a billionaire. "Damn it, let it get there." Green's words reminded Yulin of the scene in Generation of the Gods. At the end, after Xiao 11 smashed Endgame with a slap, 4 phantoms of chairs of different colors descended from the sky. Yulin vaguely, Rin seemed to understand that Green was not talking nonsense, but meant something. "Are you helping me?" "Why?" Yulin looked at Green in surprise. He didn't understand the meaning of Green's behavior. He has never been able to see through the other person, whether it was the first meeting in Nightmare Town, the reunion in Goo Goo Town, or now. From beginning to end, Green was like a mystery in front of Yulin, a dense mystery that Yulin couldn't see through. Now, this mystery is stationed in Yulin's spiritual world, and it comes to her door without any hesitation. Green didn't seem to be showing off when he said this. He lightly shook his wings and flew back to the tree, lacking in interest. From the trees came Green's voice. "This sea is too boring. It's no fun to stay the same for a long time. For you mere humans, time is a precious treasure, but for me, it is more like a curse, an unsolvable curse. Only dreams can allow me to find meaning in the boring time. Have some little fun." Yulin found it difficult to understand Green's speech. Green slowly closed his eyes and fell asleep. "Good night, outsider. Have a wonderful night." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 852. Finally, Yulin fell asleep for no reason. Green especially likes to sleep. Yulin was curious as to whether Green was a male or a female and had such a regular schedule. On the contrary, Yulin forced himself into a spinning top, spinning day and night. Day after day, night after night, rain or shine, day and night. Lin Yi, a supermodel worker who works hard and fast, has unknowingly become a celebrity in Tianjian sect. Many people may not know who Jian Nanshan is or who Chao Rushuan is, but they will definitely know Lin Yi. Because Lin Yi's appearance frequency is too high. Regardless of the Tianjian sect lineage, Lin Yi can almost be seen whenever there is a public lecture. Some people find it puzzling that the energy of monks is not endless. No monk can be proficient in every Taoist technique. If a monk can achieve success in one of these disciplines, he can run rampant in the circle. Lin Yi, on the other hand, wants to learn this and understand that, going through wind and rain. Is it really necessary to be so greedy? Many people sneered at Lin Yi's diligence and expressed disdain. They secretly said that Lin Yi didn't know how he had gained connections and was favored by many elders. The last registered disciple who wanted to imitate Lin Yi was still lying in the ward of Baikatang and had not yet been discharged from the hospital. Having learned from this experience, no one would dare to act like Lin Yi and lick the elder again. Next person. Another month has passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Tianxian Island is overflowing with rays of light. The clouds are rolling in the sky, and the clouds are filled with 7-color glow. Yulin yawned and appeared on Yanmo Mountain with 2 faint dark circles under his eyes. The inner disciple guarding the gate knew Lin Yi very well. Before Lin Yi showed his badge, the gatekeeper's face changed and he stepped aside and let Lin Yi in. "Thank you, senior brother." Yilin was very polite, cupped her hands, and smiled. After entering the courtyard, Yilin couldn't help but be stunned. "I saw Master Huayan still wearing that weird dragon and phoenix embroidered face, and layers of snow-white gauze that could barely cover her bare feet. She was sitting at a low table, painting happily with a big brush. There are mountains and water on the yellow scroll. She used simple changes in dark and light ink to outline a vivid landscape painting. There are not many disciples in Yanmo Mountain. Not counting Lin Yi, the inner sect, outer sect, and registered disciples add up to only about 20 people. They were all sitting quietly in the yard at the moment, holding their breath and not daring to make any sound. Yilin vaguely understood the origin of this atmosphere. The figure of the master painting smoke was too otherworldly, as if disturbing this tranquility was a sin. Immediately, although Yilin did not bring any painting tools, she quietly sat down and enjoyed the rare piece. After a while, Shi Huayan's slender fingers paused for a moment, then raised his head and looked at Yilin, who was deliberately hiding in the corner. A gentle smile came from behind the dragon and phoenix embroidered face. "Lin Yi, you are here." Swish, swish, swish. Shi Huayan's words instantly filled Yilin's hatred in the hearts of other disciples. "Speaking of which, there's something weird. The masters who draw cigarettes and collect them are all male disciples. In other words, all the people who come to register for Master Huayan are male disciples. All the same, no duplicates." Yilin quickly lowered her head and pretended not to hear. But Shi Huayan had no intention of letting him go. He changed his sitting posture, arched his snow-white feet slightly, and waved to Yilin. "Lin Yi, come to Shi's side." It was too late for Yilin to turn around and run away, so he could only come to Shi Huayan with the eyes of others like a hail of bullets. Shi Huayan can be said to be the most unassuming among all the elders. He casually patted the open space next to him and asked Yilin to sit down. "What do you think of my master's painting?" Master Huayan asked. Yilin picked her forehead, took a serious look, and answered honestly, "It's pretty good." "What's so good about it?" "The mountains are like mountains and the water is like water." Yilin thought for a while and answered. Like. So what?" Master Huayan smiled slightly and dropped the brush. From the tip of the pen, there was a drop of thick ink. It dripped on the painting. At the same time as water splashes appeared, the drop of ink seemed to have fallen into a pond, and the ink dye suddenly spread out, sending out ripples in circles. Yilin opened her mouth, and when she raised her head again, she found that the scenery around her had changed. He was in a world of black and white, and the mountains and rivers in the painting turned into the surrounding scenery. He and his teacher Huayan were sitting in the water. Not far away was the Philia waterfall. When the waterfall fell thousands of feet, the water vapor transpired, making the entire valley shrouded in hazy water mist, creating a unique artistic conception. I created my own smoke and ink story as my teacher. Under the pen and ink, there is a world of its own. Do you want to learn it? Of course I have thought about it. Do you still need to ask? Yilin nodded decisively. Is this an illusion? Yes and no. What is illusion? It is an illusion to confuse people's minds. Shi Huayan smiled, and she drew a knife in front of her. Like magic, Shi Huayan held the ink and wash knife that was obviously a two-dimensional style in her hand, and opened her palm to Yilin. Here, take it. Yilin hesitated, but still put her hand on Shi Huayan's hand. Shi Huayan used a knife to gently cut a thin cut on Yilin's fingertip, and blood spilled out. Yilin even felt pain. The virtual and the real and the illusion, are in the heart of the people. The master draws the flu. Yilin seemed to realize again. This is the benefit of having full understanding. Shi Huayan's Yan Mo Chi Tan seems to be an advanced mental attack. It is somewhat similar to my thought of mind. When the mental attack becomes realistic to a certain extent, even the body will believe that it has been attacked. The corresponding parts will naturally be traumatized. Well, there are a lot of things we can learn from. Yilin thought to himself, but his face showed the look of a studious boy. I do not know how long it has been. The scroll in front of Master Huayan is covered with landscapes, flowers and trees. Yilin noticed that there was a wine bottle among the flowers. I don't know when the teacher drew smoke on it. The end. Shi Huayan asked casually, Gongyang He and Gongyang Bai, how are you doing now? Why do you suddenly ask if black and white sheep is okay? However, Yilin heard that Shi Huayan hardly left the mountain and never interacted with other lineages, so he didn't feel strange. After thinking for a moment, he replied, life is pretty good. Master Huayan asked again, where is Ren Qingshan? I don't like to exercise, and I am a little fat, but I have someone to take care of me, and my life is very nourishing. Discipline Mountain, Bai Taixin, how are you doing? The family is prosperous, the disciples strive for success, and the lintel of the family shines brightly. Bai Kaitang, is Yeliang Chen still alive? You have a handsome body, take medicine every day, and live a handsome life. Ask Jianshan and Nishan River, are they still guarding the sword tomb day after day, year after year? Yes, Boss Nai is quite boring. It seems that Shi Huayan hasn't interacted with other mountains for a long time. Her tone was calm and she asked questions one by one, as if she was greeting an old friend from the past. Yilin is now familiar with every subject. When it comes to such and such, Yilin can always tell one or two things. After asking all the questions in one breath, Shi Huayan seemed tired. She gently placed the big pen on the case. After a moment of silence, she sighed softly and asked the last question. Chen Bei, how is he? Yilin was stunned and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Shi Huayan did not expect Yilin's answer. He waved his hand and sent Yilin out of the smoke and ink illusion. When Yilin came to his senses again, he and his teacher Huayan were still in the courtyard. The disciples around him were still casting murderous looks at Yilin. It seemed that the time he had just spent in the illusion was just a blink of an eye. Magic. In this strange atmosphere, teacher Huayan ended today's lecture. She didn't teach seriously even though she was talking, she just drew a picture, and finally left the painting far away for her disciples to appreciate. While it was still dark, Yilin scratched her dead skin and took the time to go back to the handyman class to reminisce about the past. This month, several new people came to the handyman class, and another Emperor of Perseverance left the handyman class after surviving for several years. There is not much change overall. There are many benefits to having a relationship with Chen Bei, and Yilin plays it very well. Yilin decided to take a rest tonight. He had been suffering from liver disease for more than a month. His liver was almost exhausted and he needed to take a nap. Zizunian is Chen Bei's treasure. Once it's in his pocket, it's very difficult to trick it out again. As for Chen Bei's own wine, it has been stored for decades. Although it is not as good as Zizuniang, when it is opened, it is full of spiritual energy and can be called a fairy mountain old cellar. As they exchanged glasses of wine, pushed glasses and raised cups, Yilin narrowed her eyes, belched wine, and asked about this matter. I said, Lao Chen. What? Is there an affair between you and Elder Huayan, master of Yanmo Mountain? Puff. When Chen Bei heard this, he choked, opened his mouth and sprayed Yilin's face with second-hand wine. You, what are you talking nonsense? Besides, I'm suing you, for slander. Believe it or not, I'm suing you for slander. How dare you slander me? I learned the word slander from Lin Yi. I didn't expect it to be used this time. Chen Bei became angry and decided to fight back, spitting back angrily. We talk about these gossips every day. Where is your cultivation? The more you practice, the more you go back. Oh, drink. Wait, why has the breath in your body disappeared again? The fifth level of chi absorption? Damn it. Hey, you're not allowed to talk about it after we have an affair, right? Do you believe that my running teacher Hua Yan said in front of you that you were chanting her name when you were drunk? You are despicable. Old Chen, I recently lacked a flying sword and an eye ring, cough cough cough. You are shameless. Chen Bei was trembling with anger. He never expected that this beast would take the opportunity to threaten him. Why didn't I see that Lin Yi was such a person before? An old man and a young man were in the wooden house. Taking advantage of their drunkenness, they began to fight. This pinch lasts for one night. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 853. Yilin has been busy lately. In Fangyuan Mountain, Yilin learns formation techniques. In Baikou Mountain, Yilin tasted the herbs and learned the secrets of alchemy. When asked about Jian Shan, Nai Shan he, who was sullen and silent all day long, looked like everyone owed him tens of billions, but every sunset, he danced the sword in front of the sword tomb and let Yilin watch stealing lessons. In the sword-making mountain, Yilin has a black head and a black face, blasting sword embryos one after another in front of the stove. In the end, he was chased all the way to the outside of the mountain by the furious sword-making elder and the mountain-protecting spirit beast. In Taai Mountain, Yilin clasped her fingers to learn the art of deduction. Day by day. Almost around the clock. Why doesn't anyone teach the art of cloning? Yilin felt deeply troubled by this. In the supreme style of magic, there is indeed a clone technique. But that kind of clone technique is still not up to the level of learning multiple clones and finally uniting all thoughts into one. Another January 15th. Yilin remembered that today was the day when Black and White Two Sheep preached. He arrived belatedly and headed to the mission garden. Unexpectedly, he was blocked by Jian Nanchun on the way, gritting his teeth. My junior brother Lin, it's so difficult to find you. Jian Nanchun stepped on the flying sword, with a look of resentment on his face that he couldn't poop out but could only hold back in his stomach. Well, senior brother Jian, it's easy to talk to him. You're all right. I haven't seen you for a few days, but senior brother is still so impressive with his sword. It seems that senior brother has improved a lot in his cultivation. Yilin rode Xiaoqing, held her hand in front of her, and flattered her casually. Jian Nanchun took a long breath. At this moment, he had the illusion that he had finally found you and fulfilled his lifelong wish. He never expected that this new junior brother would become a hot celebrity in Tianjian sect. Lin Yi was so popular that he even outshone Jian Nanchun, who was known as the grass of the Commandment Mountain. When he passed by before, the junior brothers and sisters all called him Brother Chun. Now that he was passing by, the junior sisters gathered around him, curious to find out interesting stories about Lin Yi. Because there are rumors that Lin Yi is the best young seedling that Jian Nanchun discovered in the secular world through his wise eyes, and brought him back to Tianjian sect on purpose. It seemed that every elder, except the headmaster, favored Lin Yi. No matter whether Lin Yi was late, left early, or even didn't come, they had no complaints and allowed Lin Yi to do whatever he wanted. When Jian Nanchun found out, he was confused. He always felt like he had done something wrong. Why did you recruit this person? Before Lin Yi, Jian Nanchun had never heard of so many elders making an exception to recruit the same person as a registered disciple. This is so weird. Jian Nanchun searched for Lin Yi for more than half a month. First, I was curious to ask if there was any special deal or secret involved. Secondly, Jian Nanchun heard that Mr. Lin Yi liked to go to other places, but it was the discipline academy that he just went through the motions. After receiving the registered disciple token, he never visited again. His master was at the door every day, with a black face and resentment. Ask Lin Yi directly whether he looks down on the Commandment Mountain and so on. Thirdly, Jian Nanchun spent the whole day around junior sister Chao Rushuan's wooden house, pretending to breathe and practice swordplay, and hesitated, as if possessed, restless, insomniac and dreamy, and his whole body lost weight. In short, Jian Nanchun wanted to find out from Lin Yi. But it was not as easy as before for Jian Nanchun to find Yilin. Yilin now has her own little house on every mountain. Not to mention the Cunning Rabbit 3 cave, including the wooden house reserved by the handyman team. The number of non-property free houses owned by Yilin in Tianjianmen is close to double digits. He couldn't find it during the day, couldn't squat at night, and Jian Nanchun couldn't touch Lin Yi at all. It's strange to say that Lin Yi usually seems to be invisible. Many disciples usually don't notice Lin Yi's existence at all. When they notice, Lin Yi has already ridden the crane and left, leaving no clouds behind. People are unpredictable. No. Today is the day when Black and White and the two sheeps teach their monthly exercises. Jian Nanchun thought about trying his luck near the main peak. Oh, I didn't expect him to be lucky today, he was really stuck. Jian Nanchun was afraid that this kid would disappear in a flash, and if he tried to block him next time, it would be a matter of time. So Jian Nanchun put his arm around Yilin's shoulders without saying anything, acting like they were good brothers. Others were surprised when they saw it. As mentioned before, Yilin became a celebrity in Tianjian sect. He seems to have a hotly searched physique, and he is particularly easy to mess with. It was true before, it is true now, and it will probably be true in the future. Even those who don't know Yilin will recognize him once they see the heavy string of waistbands on Yilin's waist. And Jian Nanchun is the favorite disciple of elder discipline, so he has a lot of cards. Although Lin Yi was introduced by Jian Nanchun, the two of them looked like they were more than just brothers, right? When Jian Nanchun and Lin Yi walked to the mountaintop square shoulder to shoulder, many disciples were whispering in private, speculating whether the two had a deeper relationship. Jian Nanchun couldn't care less about rumors now. Before Black and White sheep arrived at the scene, Jian Nanchun secretly pulled Yilin to a corner to talk about his inner feelings. Junior brother Lin. Senior brother is feeling miserable. Why did brother Jian say this? Junior brother, you know, ahem. It seems that you are trapped by love. Junior brother, it's vulgar to say that. I just feel that recently, junior sister Chao has been obsessed with practicing all day long and has not left the wooden hut all day long. I'm afraid something will happen. Isn't this a good thing? How can this be a good thing? Jian Nanchun was trembling with anger when he heard this. Even if you are a monk, if you are not in seclusion, how can you work behind closed doors? On the road of cultivation, there are many inner demons. Once you go astray, you will suffer. What a disaster! Only when fellow students confirm each other and work together can we get twice the result with half the effort and reach a higher level. What senior brother said is absolutely true. Yilin nodded in agreement. After thinking for a moment, Yilin said again, well, senior brother, I probably understand why senior brother is upset. Hey, junior brother Huiyin. Come on, junior brother has a plan. To put it bluntly, he still wants to seduce his junior sister. Yilin understood. She was recalling the routines in the more popular ethics dramas that she had accidentally learned more than 10 years ago, and was about to say something casually. When he was saying something, he suddenly remembered something. Wait a minute, in our sect, senior brothers and junior sisters are not against the sect rules, right? Jian Nanchun shook his head. Before I entered the school for my brother, it is said that for a long time, the sect had clearly prohibited monks from becoming Taoist couples in the Tianjian section. Why? Yilin asked. This, senior brother doesn't understand the details. Jian Nanchun shrugged. Also before brother Wei entered the door, it was said that one day, the supreme leader of the sect issued an order that no longer prohibited monks in the sect from becoming Taoist companions. It was changed to it is forbidden to form Taoist couples of the same origin and sect. Then senior brother, aren't you breaking the law? When Jian Nanchun heard the word illegal at first, he thought it was strange, but after thinking about it carefully, it seemed that there was nothing wrong with it. Jian Nanchun shook his head and said with a smile, "Junior brother, I don't know. There are rumors that junior sister Chao has been appointed as the Supreme Master's personal disciple. In time, junior sister Chao will leave Discipline Mountain, become the direct disciple of the Master, and step onto the top of the monks. At that time, won't it be against the rules?" Hiss. Yilin suddenly took a breath of cold air. Etc. Since Chao Rushuan is the direct successor of the leader, if the leader passes away, wouldn't Chao Rushuan be the leader? So Chao Rushuan became the leader, and Jian Nanchun fell in love with Chao Rushuan, wouldn't he be the leader's Taoist companion? This guy has a big plan. Looking at Yilin's strange eyes, Jian Nanchun quickly explained, "Fame benefits me, like the breeze on my sleeves, and like the passing clouds, they are just clouds in the sky. I admire my junior sister from the bottom of my heart, whether she is a direct descendant of the head of the sect, or she is in the world. Even if there is an unknown woman in my life, it will not change my senior brother's admiration for my junior sister. This heart can be seen by the sun and the moon, and can be seen clearly by the heaven and the earth, and there is absolutely no lie." Okay, Yilin looked away and believed it for the time being. In a few words, Yilin was distracted and thought of some ideas. He felt that although he was not a veteran of flowers like Li Chang'e, the dimensionality reduction attack from modern thinking would not be a big problem if he could help Jian Nanchun a little. So Yilin smiled and said, "Senior brother's current suffering is nothing more than one reason. Junior brother, please tell me." Jian Nanchun's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw Yilin's confident look. "It's all because you two have too little contact. Senior brother, you have only been observing from a distance and have not played with each other. There is a lack of in-depth understanding between you. Learn. Yes, whether it is love or hate, it is initially based on the premise of understanding. If you don't understand, how can you talk about love? If you don't understand, how can you talk about hatred? First of all, you have to find a way to get close to senior sister Chao, and let senior sister through various methods know who you are as a person." Yeah, Jian Nanchun couldn't wait to take notes and nodded vigorously. "Junior brother, what you said makes sense. What should we do specifically?" I think since senior sister Chao is obsessed with practicing, you might as well work on this aspect first. How about that? For example, find a way to get close to senior sister Chao and help her clarify her doubts about practice." When Jian Nanchun heard this, he looked embarrassed and turned red. He improved for a long time before he finally managed to say, "Junior sister's cultivation level surpassed mine last year. That's easier, just go up and ask shamelessly. But junior sister doesn't go out, what should we do?" "Don't go out? Then break the door open. Knock on the door. Ahem, knock. Knock until it opens. Persistence is victory. But junior sister, won't she be angry because of this?" "What's wrong with being angry? You come to ask for advice. It's justifiable. Is there any problem?" Yilin spread her hands and asked and answered, "There is no problem at all." Jian Nanchun opened his mouth wide and suddenly realized. But somehow, he always felt that something was wrong. Yilin raised a finger between Jian Nanchun's eyes. Jian Nanchun thought that finger had some deep meaning, so he just stared at it. When Jian Nanchun almost squeezed out his cross-eyed eyes, Yilin said in a deep and profound voice, "Brother, please remember one sentence: sincerity wherever you go, gold and stone are opened, and over time, drops of water penetrate the stone." Your persistence will definitely make senior sister Chao Rushuan feel your full sincerity, and she will eventually be moved by you. Think about it, one day, the two of you will be like a couple of gods. Riding on a crane, flying proudly in the sky, traveling in the clouds hand in hand. I only envy the Mandarin ducks but not the immortals. Jian Nanchun was like an enlightenment. Under the guidance of Master Lin, the toilet suddenly opened and enlightenment suddenly appeared. He didn't even bother to listen to the teachings of the elder Chuan Gong. He stepped on the flying sword and went straight to Discipline Mountain, preparing to go back and pry open the door of his junior sister. Call. Finally, Jian Nanchun was taken away, and Yilin breathed a sigh of relief. Just in time. It took some time, but the ram came late. When Gong Yang He fell on the soft futon alone with a black face, the whole square was silent. They all noticed something incongruous. Wait, where is the other sheep? The two elders, Gong and Sheep, have the same mind. They always go out and go in together. Why is there only one sheep here to teach the practice today? Although for other disciples, it doesn't make much difference whether there is one elder or two elders, as long as someone comes to give lectures. But this is so weird. Yilin, who was among the disciples, naturally noticed it and was suddenly startled. Then he thought of a possibility and suddenly couldn't laugh or cry. The old man, isn't he afraid that I'll steal the house again, so he deliberately left one squatting at home. I'm not someone who often steals homes. After Yilin figured it out, she was a little angry. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 854. Sure enough, Yilin guessed it correctly. Yilin listened to half of the lecture, and felt that she had heard almost enough. She took advantage of the darkness and left quietly in the middle of the lecture. By chance, Yilin was passing by the mission garden, and she felt a current of air inside, hovering high in the sky, like an angry dragon, which was very scary. This situation is like a ram sitting carefree in the yard, glaring at Yilin and saying, "Come here." Yilin was speechless. The two elders of Gongyang only had 2 bottles of purple bamboo brew left in stock. There was no need to mess with them at this time, let's talk about it next time. Forget it this time. In fact, Yilin doesn't care whether Jian Nanchun sleeps or not and whether Chao Rushuan sleeps or not. But taking advantage of this opportunity, Yilin planned to go down the mountain and return to Qingnu village to see how her parents were doing. If possible, he even wanted to bring his parents to Fairy Mountain for their retirement. The climate here is pleasant and the spiritual energy is abundant. Even ordinary people can live a long life without any illness or pain if they don't practice light and pestle here. During the day, he was Lin Yi, a studious disciple and the legendary group favorite of all the elders. At night, he went deep into the center and worked tirelessly above the spiritual sea to carry out a huge project called Building the Throne. Although the progress of this huge project is slow, it is beginning to take shape. Under Green's guidance, Yilin really worked on that thing. But in the spiritual world, Green sneered at Yilin's excitement and curled up his middle finger with his wings to express his disdain. "How dare you let such a piece of rags out? I accidentally sneezed away when I woke up, you are far behind." Yilin wanted to say go away at that time. How can the knowledge of humans and bats be generalized? In this regard, Yilin reserves his opinion and will not comment. The days are boring but fulfilling. After mentioning Jian Nanchun that day, Yilin never met brother Jian on the road again. Maybe it was because fate had not come yet, or maybe Yilin was too busy and Jian Nanchun didn't catch the person. Half a year, for a monk, may really be regarded as fleeting in the blink of an eye. Soon. It's the 12th lunar month that we agreed with Jian Nanchun. Yilin took advantage of the sword-making elder to go out that day, and spent some of the low-grade spiritual stones that registered disciples could receive every month to rent a weapon refining furnace. With the call of both hands, she poured weak spiritual energy into the formation on the furnace, skillfully turned on the stove. Yilin was already very savvy, but after a few blasts due to bad luck, Yilin finally succeeded in refining a mediocre little magic weapon. This made Hua Wu, the sword-making elder who hurried back from outside after getting the news, heaved a sigh of relief and at the same time praised Yilin fiercely and said that the named disciple Lin Yi had completely understood the essence of weapon refining and could be a disciple without having to do it. Come again. Please don't come here again, Hua Wu probably meant this. He seemed frightened. The elder of Zhejian Mountain, Hua Wu, has been the elder of Zhejian Mountain for 36 years. He has never seen a disciple who can explode like this. I really don't know what Qianbei sees in him. Fortunately, this disciple was registered, and he was not only thinking about his sword-making mountain, he would have to leave one day. Whenever the sword-making elder thought about this, he tolerated it without getting angry. Yilin had just hid the dozens of advanced remote control grenades she had made, and was riding Xiaoqing around the fairy island, thinking about which mountain gate to visit next. Unexpectedly, she was attacked by Qianbei on the way. Blocked. Look, this clearly shows the difference between Qianbei and Jian Nanchun. They both blocked Lin Yi. Jian Nanchun Ku Lin Yi had been there for a long time, but Qianbei blocked it all at once. Follow me. Qianbei didn't say much. He rode the crane and took Yilin directly to Wenjian Mountain. There are sword tombs inside Wenjian Mountain. The sword tombs are filled with flying swords, some intact and some broken. Yilin knows this place, he comes here often. This is the place where inner disciples find their natal flying sword. But why isn't this place called Jianxun Mountain, Kaijian Mountain, Jiana Mountain, Zhongshan Mountain and other names, but instead uses the word ask? Among them, it is said that he is very knowledgeable. When the two were about to land, Yilin stared at Qianbei's stooped back and pale hair, and couldn't help but sigh. I said, Lao Chen, today is a special day. Are you finally going to show off your cards? Qianbei had just stepped off the crane with one leg. Hearing this, he almost lost his balance and stumbled towards the crane's wings. Qianbei held it in for a while. He was familiar with Yilin and knew that he couldn't beat Lin Yi with his dirty talk, so he could only say one word silently, get out. After he took a few steps, Yilin pointed to another path, Old Chen, the way up the mountain should be this way. It's not Qianbei's fault. He has been in the handyman class for 60 years. Times have changed. Qianbei did not deliberately use spiritual scanning. Perhaps these years have made him no longer have this habit. The two came to the mountainside. On the bluestone path and the entrance to the sword tomb, Nishan he has been waiting here for a long time. Uncle Master. Puff. When Yilin heard what Nishan he called Qianbei, she almost choked on her saliva. Later, although he had already guessed that Qianbei had some status in Tianjian sect, he was at the level of an elder at most. He didn't think about the headmaster, because Jian Nanchun had already told Yilin the information about the elders in the section. Jian Nanchun told Yilin very clearly that the current headmaster was a woman and would not accept male disciples. Qianbei has been role-playing and pretending to be a handyman in the handyman class for 60 years, but looking horizontally and vertically, she doesn't look like a woman. Nishan he is already an elder in the sect, and all the elders under the sect are of the same rank. There was a bit of surprise on Yilin's face. He looked at Qianbei and asked directly without any scruples, Old Chen, who are you? Hey, I am the current leader. Senior brother of. Yilin was stunned, where is the position? Humph, do you think I, Qianbei, would care about that mere status? Yilin suddenly realized it and blurted out, it turns out that you are old because of your seniority. Nishan he suddenly had the urge to stab the beast to death with a sword. The tenacity of his sword that he had tempered for hundreds of years actually fluctuated due to this. Call. Nishan, he breathed a sigh of relief, his expression as calm as a mirror or a lake. He closed and opened his eyes, looked at Yilin, and said softly, "My uncle was recognized as the #1 genius in the sect back then, and no one could surpass him." The implication is that Chen Bei is not relying on his seniority, but because he is really awesome. Hey, it's an old story, and I'm old now. Chen Bei waved his hand and smiled, but Nishan He's words still made him feel comfortable. "Xiaolin, you will be going down the mountain in a few days. Although you are in formation, alchemy, weapon refining, hexagram skills, beast taming." After talking for a while, Chen Bei felt that the list was too much, and he felt a little depressed inexplicably. He paused for a moment and continued, "Ahem, wait for the small and talented among many sects. But my own cultivation is shallow, and if I encounter a disciple of the demon sect or a cruel monster with advanced cultivation, I will most likely die a violent death. So, for the sake of those 3 pots of purple bamboo brew, I will give you a chance, Lao Chen. As for the sword you can ask for, it all depends on your understanding and luck. There are 5 pots in total." Yilin stretched out a slab to correct Chen Bei's mathematical mistakes. After thinking for a while, he said, "I got the flying sword without being an inner disciple. Does anyone else know it? Do you have any opinions?" "Who dares to have an opinion?" Chen Bei's nostrils dilated and he breathed out 2 breaths of confidence. "Besides, if Zia he doesn't say it, I don't say it, and if you don't say it, who knows? Alas, stop whining and hurry in. You only have 10 heavenly kung fu. Once the time is up, no matter whether you have found your natal flying sword or not, you must leave the sword tomb and not stay. Many inner disciples are waiting in line." Upon hearing this, Yilin's expression was slightly startled. 10 days, he stared at the dark doorway, which was made of stone bricks like a tomb. There was no light inside the sword tomb. Yilin was a little unsure. He asked again, "Are you sure, this will take 10 days? Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 855. Chen Bei snorted coldly, "Don't think that it is such a simple thing to go to the sword tomb to ask for the sword. If you hadn't passed the 10-star chess game of Gongyang Black and Gongyang White, I wouldn't have let you at the 8th level of Naki. No, at the 7th level of Naki, you can venture inside." He passed the 10-star chess game. When Nishan he heard this, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. It was obvious that he didn't know about this. Yes, although this guy is not very good at cultivation, his understanding is ridiculously high. I don't know what weird things are growing in his head. Chen Bei casually replied to Nishan he, then grabbed Yilin's ear and explained in detail the key points of entering the sword tomb to question the sword. Turn out to be. The existence of the sword tomb can even be traced back to the beginning of the Tianjian sect's founding. Neither Chen Bei nor the current leader can remember the origin of the sword tomb. Because everyone who knows the history of Jianzhong has been lost in the long river of history. But what they know is that buried in the sword tomb are the natal flying swords of countless ancestors. These flying swords have been cultivated by generations, and the sword intention on the swords has not disappeared. Even over time, countless flying swords have spontaneously formed, created a pure natural super sword array. If you don't have enough cultivation, or don't understand the battle skills well, if you enter rashly, you will be pierced by thousands of swords and die in minutes. Therefore, when entering the sword tomb, it is not to take, not to ask, not to snatch, but to ask. If you ask about a sword, those who are destined will be able to ask about it. Sword formation. After Chen Bei's explanation, Yilin roughly guessed what he would face next. If that's the case, don't panic. Chen Bei took out a small colorful flag, stuffed it into Yilin's hand, and warned, "This is the Qinji banner, a formation weapon. It is also very simple to use. You only need to inject a small amount of spiritual energy into the Kinji banner. The flag can be divided into 2 or 4 parts at will, and can be used as a formation flag. Although it is not a top-notch magic weapon, it is just right for you to use. However, do not lay it in the sword tomb easily until the critical moment. Formation, otherwise it will anger them. Clear. Yulin felt the difference between Qianbei's words and Qianbei's worry. She held the Thousand Machine banner carefully and tried to inject a little spiritual energy into the Thousand Machine banner. Of course, to Yulin, spiritual energy, magic power, and spiritual energy value are actually the same thing. The physique of their apostle seems to be able to convert the energy breath in the air into corresponding styles. This may be the benefit of converting human essence into source code, as Green said. Abbreviation, digitization. After injecting a small amount of spiritual energy, the small flag in his hand slightly increased by a few inches, transforming from one small flag into 2. The 2 flags, one red and one green, slowly rotated in Yulin's palm, which was particularly mysterious. Great weapon. Yulin played with it for a while, praised it for being useful, praised it, held it in his palm, and put away the Thousand Plains banner. In addition, once you face a life or death crisis, don't forget my token. If you inject spiritual energy into it, I will be able to detect it immediately outside the sword tomb and lend a helping hand. But at the same time, remember, break into the sword tomb. At this time, once a second person is involved, it will no longer be possible to get the recognition of the ancestor Fijian in the sword tomb, and there will be no hope of ever seeking swordsmanship. Before Yulin stepped into the sword tomb, Qianbei repeatedly reminded her. The rules are clear, understand. Yulin turned around and gave an okay gesture to Qianbei and Nai Shanhe behind him. He took a few steps forward and saw the sword tomb in front of him. The tomb lived up to its name. The entrance is the entrance to the tomb made of grey stone bricks. It is thick, deep, and solemn, with a sword buried inside. As she walked inside, Yulin had the illusion of stepping into the tomb and burying this world. Correct. Yulin was about to step into the sword tomb. At the entrance, she suddenly turned around and said, "If anything bad happens to me, please take care of the Lin family in Dongsheng Shenzhou, Qingnu village at the foot of Qingnu mountain, for me." Qianbei was stunned for a moment, then he couldn't help laughing and scolding, "You bastard, didn't you say that in a life or death situation, remember to use the token I gave you?" Just in case, Yulin shook her head, "I used to be alone, but now I'm a little more concerned, and I'm not used to it." After saying that, Yulin calmly stepped into the sword tomb without saying anything more. In the darkness, the corridors on both sides were dotted with luminous pearls, giving off a hazy glow. Yulin walked 10 meters away when she suddenly remembered something and took out a turtle shell from her arms. There were 3 coins in the turtle shell. Boom, boom, boom. Yulin squatted on the ground, shook the turtle shell, and shook out 3 coins. There are 2 kinds of hexagram techniques. Active deduction is called divination and passive deduction is called divination. This tortoise-shell fortune-telling method is one of the most basic passive deductions, and it is also the most basic divination. With the help of some randomly generated hexagrams, analyze them and measure good and bad luck. Good, good, bad. It's not bad. Yulin put away the turtle shell and money with satisfaction. In fact, he didn't pay much attention to the results of the divination. He just did it for fun and just used it as a practice. When he was free to deduce, he would often throw out 2 bad omens, and even throw out a sign of big bad omens. Apart from the misfortunes such as exploding the furnace at Zhejian Mountain and encountering Jian Nanchun when going out, aren't you living a good life now? Just for fun. Whether it's accurate or not is another matter. Yulin walked through a long and narrow tomb passage. In the tomb, the air was gloomy and cold. With the dim light, Yulin could barely see clearly inside the sword tomb, but for the sake of safety, Yilin still let go of her senses and noticed the movement around her. There was no one around anyway, so Yilin didn't bother to pretend to be a newbie and just showed off her cards. After walking 100 meters, Yilin estimated that she had entered the interior of the mountain, and the space in front of her suddenly became much emptier. In front of his eyes, there was a series of undulating flying swords. Each flying sword was inserted upside down into the uneven rocks, like tombstones. After stepping into the sword tomb, Yilin suddenly felt like being peered into by a pair of eyes from the dark. She immediately felt her scalp numb and a lot of goosebumps appeared all over her body. Yilin wandered in the sword tomb for about 10 minutes. After being alert for a while, the imagined danger did not appear. Although the atmosphere was strange, and Yilin clearly sensed that something was wrong, after walking for a while, Yilin was still fine, getting along well with the ancestors in the tomb, and getting along well. It seems like it's still a trigger trap, right? Yilin tried to apply modern thinking to explain the current situation. Assuming this is a game level, then the traps in the level are trigger type, and nothing will happen if you don't be cunning. But Yilin didn't come here just for safety. If nothing happened, why not just come here? Yilin clearly expected something to happen before she stepped into the sword tomb. If nothing happens, how can we gain something? Thinking of this, Yilin squinted his eyes and began to look for his target through the dim light of the night pearls inlaid on the walls of the sword tomb. To put it bluntly, the sword tomb is a tomb located in the mountain. The scope of the tomb is quite large, with undulating ground and a forest of flying swords in the distance. You can barely take in the entire sword tomb at a glance. Yilin originally advanced on foot, honestly acting as an infantryman, looking for targets. But as she walked, Yilin felt that this was too slow, so she used her mental power to float into the air, preparing to improve her efficiency. When Yilin floated about 10 meters above the ground, a sudden change occurred. Buzz. 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 In the sealed tomb, bursts of high-frequency sounds suddenly sounded. It's those flying swords. When Yilin flew over their heads, the flying swords, which were originally lifeless, suddenly came to life. The swords trembled and made a sword cry. How many sleeping flying swords are there in the sword tomb? 1,000? 10,000? 100,000? Yilin lost count. In short, when Yilin flew up, it seemed that she had violated some kind of taboo. At this moment, it was like a drop of water falling into a hot pan, and like a piece of delicious smoked meat falling into a group of hungry dogs. Buzz buzz dash. The sword tomb was on fire. Clang. 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 The sword flew with each breath, and the sword suddenly reflected the sharp sword light. Some were like fire, some were like water, and some were like gold. The sword lights of various colors converged into a terrifying hurricane, like a meat grinder, mercilessly twisting Yilin in the air. Grass. Can't we stand on the heads of our ancestors? Are these broken swords so arrogant? Lao Chen, didn't you even say such an important thing earlier? Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 856. Outside the sword tomb. Chenbei and Naishan he waited quietly. The two waited for a while, knowing that Lin Yi would not come out so soon and had nothing to do, so they started chatting. Chenbei looked at Naishan he's white hair on his temples and couldn't help sighing, you were still a child back then, but I didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, you would become an elder of Wenjian Mountain. Uncle, you are still as charming as ever. Naishan he sighed softly, it's just that I have no chance to see you again, master. The master mentioned in Naishan Hekao was the previous elder of Wenjian Mountain. The previous elder of Wenjian Mountain lived for 370 years. In the end, time passed by and passed away sadly. It doesn't matter, I'm going to go down and drink with him. Chenbei smiled. Naishan he was silent. Every monk is seeking immortality and enlightenment, but no one can live forever and will eventually grow old. Uncle Master, why is it him? Nishan he was silent for a while, and finally couldn't help but ask. He had been holding this question back for a long time. In his opinion, Lin Yi was able to understand the essence of the formation technique in a short period of time, and he also passed the 10-star chess game, so he could tell that he had certain skills. However, Nishan he believed that Lin Yi lacked the firm will that a cultivator should have, had no understanding, and could not go far. Just when Chen Bei was about to say something, there was a violent vibration in the sword tomb. Waves of sword sounds, like waves, swayed from the sword tomb. Chen Bei and Nishan he's expression suddenly changed. They didn't care about reminiscing about old times, and Chen Bei almost couldn't help but rush in. That bastard, mustn't he have pissed off all the swordsmanship of our ancestors? When Chen Bei first came up with this idea, he subconsciously thought it was impossible. But then I thought about it, damn it, it was that kid who most likely pissed off all the sword intentions. He began to secretly regret whether he had been too anxious in sending him to the sword tomb. Fortunately, Nishan he's concern for Lin Yi was not as obvious as Chen Bei's. After his expression changed slightly, he quickly calmed down. Chen Bei was spinning in circles, waiting for Lin Yi to trigger the token before rushing in. After waiting, the expected distress signal did not come, and the boiling Jianzhong quickly became quiet. Chen Bei and Nishan he looked at each other. What happened inside? It's very intense. What Yilin didn't know was that when he broke into the sword tomb, he missed a very important step. When many inner disciples get the opportunity to come to the sword tomb to inquire about swords, their elders will repeatedly tell them to respect the remaining sword intent of their ancestors. There are a lot of taboos. For example, you cannot make loud noises, you cannot fly in the air without permission, you must burn incense and bathe, you must perform 3 obeisances and 9 kowtows, etc. The remaining sword intention on the flying sword has not formed a complete spiritual consciousness, it is equivalent to just a trace of obsession. Most of these obsessions have inherited the pride of their previous masters during their lifetime. Once someone breaks into the sword tomb and disrespects them, they hardly need to use their brains. They will directly attack them in groups and beat the disrespectful people into scum. So, this is Wenjian Mountain. In the sword tomb, talking is king. A serious disciple of the Tianjian sect will spend a long period of time under a certain master after entering the school, learning rules, etiquette, groveling, and learning the essence of pleasing their elders. In other words, even if their master did not remind them, the first thing they did when they came to the sword tomb was to fly the sword towards the natal sword left by their ancestors. They worshipped first and then begged, hoping to give these guys the arrogant sword intention and refresh their swords from the beginning. Create a wave of goodwill. But Yilin doesn't understand. How did he know that these ancient swordsmen were so arrogant? As soon as he flew up, preparing to pass over the heads of tens of thousands of flying swords, he offended the sword intent of the mountain and prepared to kill the beast. In addition, Yilin had some problems with her charm and was more likely to attract hatred, which is why she almost overturned the entire sword tomb at the beginning. Yilin figured out all the joints in an instant and fell back to the ground without saying a word. Buzz. The sound of swords coming from all directions weakened a bit. But Yilin still vaguely felt that an emotion called anger was echoing throughout the space. The buzzing in his ears at this moment gave him the feeling that a group of women were lying in his ears and talking about their dissatisfaction. I probably understand how to clear the level. It turns out it's better to brush up on the favorability factor. Yilin regained her composure and began to inject spiritual power into the Qianji banner given by Chen Bei. As the spiritual energy value was consumed, the 1,000 machines flag flashed, 1 divided into 2, 2 divided into 4, 4 divided into 8, finally, 32 small flags of different colors swirled around Yilin. Go. Yilin smiled slightly, flicked his fingers, and 32 small flags fell into the sword tomb. Heaven and earth are infinite, and the universe is borrowed from the law. Yulin followed the instructions taught by the flower girl and began to set up the formation. Of course, if the flower girl or Ren Qingshan came, they would probably look confused. Because Yulin's formation method is somewhat different from that of traditional monks. It is not strictly distributed according to the pattern of the heavenly stems and the earthly branches and the 12 constellations. Yulin incidentally added some of his own understanding of magic, crystal patterns, and supreme flow magic to form a nondescript and irregular freedom. Array. 32 small flags, the moment they landed, transformed into 32 faceless people wearing elders' robes. 32 elders, following the highest standards of etiquette passed down from ancient times in Tianjian sect, flew swords in the sword tomb, and began to kowtow 3 times and 9 times, one step at a time, and then kowtow again. If you are not happy, I will continue to kowtow. I kept knocking. After finishing all the etiquette, the arrogant sword intention contained in the flying sword finally became clear and comfortable. In the sword tomb, calmness returned and there was silence. No, it's quite simple. Yulin breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, these flying swords were not real people and could easily be fooled. He used some tricks to fool the angry flying swords in the sword tomb. Nonsense, 32 elders are worshipping here, even if it is the mourning hall of past leaders, they may not be treated like this. After all, there are currently less than 32 elders alive, and they can't be found no matter how hard they try. If this group of arrogant sword intentions is not satisfied, Yulin will have no choice but to force it out. After all the sword intentions calmed down in a round of continuous flattery, Yulin did not immediately put away the 1,000 machine flags, but let the 32 small flags surround him. He watched a flying one not far away. The sword looked quite unique, and there was a faint glow on the sword. He stepped forward quietly, and when Fijian had no objection, he stretched out his 5 fingers and quickly grasped the hilt of Fijian. The joint registered disciple of Tianjianmen's preaching garden, Fangyuan Mountain, Yanmo Mountain, Zhoulu Mountain, Baiko Mountain, Wenjian Mountain, Spirit Beast Mountain, Zhejian Mountain, and Tai Mountain, and the contemporary head of Tianjianmen, her senior brother Chen Bei Wangnian Zi hand in hand, Lin Yi, come here to ask for a sword, I hope all the ancestors will generously give you the sword. As soon as Yulin grasped the hilt of the sword, a cool breath suddenly came from the contact between the hilt and the palm of the hand. Without hesitation, Yulin immediately introduced herself to the family and asked about the sword, focusing on the word ask. Since it is a question, the more popular the self-reported title is, the better. As soon as the cool breath invaded Yulin's body, it suddenly turned into a freezing cold, giving Yulin an instant illusion of being in a polar glacier. In the blink of an eye, Yulin's whole body was trembling, and her skin and hair were covered with a layer of white frost. When she opened her mouth to breathe, her breath condensed into a white mist, and her whole body seemed to be a living ice sculpture. Yulin's expression changed slightly. He endured the biting cold in his body and tried to forcefully pull out the ice attribute flying sword, a variant of the 5 elements attributes. But even though he tried his best, he couldn't pull the flying sword out of the ground with brute force. As time passed, the frost on the surface of Yulin's body became thicker and thicker. Until Yulin felt that her consciousness was beginning to blur, she finally couldn't hold on anymore and let go of her hand. The chill subsided quietly. He quickly sat on the ground and circulated the pitifully weak aura in his body. After about half an hour, Yulin finally cleared the alien aura from his body and his limbs warmed up. Turning over his hand again, he looked at the palm where he had just drawn the sword. The palm of his hand was bruised and it looked like he had been frostbitten. Yulin stared at her frostbitten palms. Does this mean, you don't agree? Dream linkage. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 857. In the past 13 years, Yilin has not experienced the feeling of being injured for a long time. He had almost forgotten what it felt like to be injured. Yilin's palms were blue and purple, and she almost lost consciousness. But he didn't pay attention. He pulled it out several times without pulling out the water attribute flying sword, and then moved on to the next one. The next sword seemed to be made of metal among the 5 elements. As soon as Yilin put his hand on it, a sharp spiral sword energy suddenly twisted along the hilt towards Yilin's right hand. Yilin's right sleeve was suddenly torn into cloth strips, skin torn and flesh dripping with blood. The third one. The fourth one. The fifth one. Yilin took advantage of the fact that there was no pain in that hand, so she simply touched the porcelain with this hand and tried one after another. When Yilin tried the 12th flying sword with an expressionless face, Yilin's right hand was already in terrible shape, with various scars on it. It was as if his hands were first treated by ice and fire, then dripped with wax, and then repeatedly ravaged by a whip, turning into a big pig's hoof dripping with blood, swollen, burnt, and brittle. If it were an ordinary person, this hand would be cut off. No wonder Lao Chen said it would take 10 days. Yilin looked at his big pig's elbow and raised his eyebrows, thinking that it was not as easy as he thought to bring out a flying sword from the sword tomb. This is why Chen Bei is worried that Yilin's life is in danger during the process of asking for the sword. In the Lingju, Sanling, who had been paying close attention to Yilin's movements, couldn't stand it anymore. They floated beside Yilin in a mini posture, looking at Yilin's pig knuckle with heartache. Master, don't try again. If you try again, you can chew it with your hands. Xiaomei's heart hurts so much that she can't breathe, woo woo woo. Yilin took a short rest and meditated on the spot. Inside the body, bursts of weird warmth came from the heart. It first circulated in the body for a week, and finally flowed to the injured arm, covering Yilin's pig elbow in a hazy white light, giving people a sense of warmth. Pleasant feeling. That white light came from nowhere, and was slowly repairing Yilin's body, moisturizing everything silently. Master, your body. 13 years later, Bai Xiao noticed something strange. They know Yilin well. The 3 spirits all know that Yilin used to have a special inhuman physique. Not to mention being injured, they didn't know whether a severed head could grow back, and Yilin had never had it broken either, but at least breaking off a limb was as easy as cutting nails for Yilin, but it was a little painful. But now, Yilin's speed of repairing her injuries is obviously slower than before. Yilin felt the warmth coming from his heart. He slowly closed his eyelids, unwilling to move, and murmured to himself, "It's her. She." Bai Xiao noticed a complicated look on the young master's face. Among them, there is nostalgia, guilt, warmth, and regret. But that complicated look was fleeting, and Yilin soon opened her eyes again, regained her composure, and said with a smile, "I finally understand why my panel is garbled." The pocket-sized versions of Nai Hongxiu, Bai Xiaoi, and Gaijiamaimi came up to her, like 3 little bees or elves, surrounding Yilin, waiting for explanations. In addition to this world being a lawless land, after coming out of reincarnation, my abilities were split, Yilin smiled. As the pig's hooves were repaired, he gently pressed his other hand on his chest, "My current bloodline should be pure human race. As I was reborn, only companion equipment and parasitic equipment grew out. What about us?" Bai Xiao was stunned and pointed at her pink face. Gaijiamaimi is a spirit attached to the parasitic equipment laughter mask, but Bai Xiao and Nai Hongxiu are not. "I have a bold guess," Yilin smiled, "your body is in the storage space, and the storage space should still exist in a corner, but now I can't open it normally, but I can through the connection and bond with you, I can summon the possessed weapon." I don't know how 11ER did it. I guess when I become whole again, the panel will return to normal. So, it's Myrian who is protecting you now. Nai Hungzio understood. She looked coldly at Yilin's slowly repaired pig's trotters and gradually grew white, tender, and fresh skin. There was an inexplicable jealousy in the depths of her eyes. Yes, her distant ideal land turns out to be still in my body. Ha, good, I figured out one more thing. Yilin moved her right arm and secretly thought it was a pity. As the injury improved, Yilin's hand gradually regained consciousness. If I go up and hit the old man's flying sword now, it will be extremely painful. Saber, can't you slow down? Tisk. Just when Yilin was about to continue playing porcelain, a ray of red light emerged from between Yilin's eyebrows. The red light flickered in the sword tomb and turned into a cute little bat. Green came out. Seeing the big boss appear, Yilin was stunned. You can actually leave the hub. Green sneered and shook his red-eyed little head. Don't underestimate me. Hearing this, Yilin was quite speechless. Then you have been hiding for 13 years? Why did you go there so long ago? Fell asleep. Green put his wings on his pencil waist and answered confidently. Then you come out now and exercise after waking up. Yilin did not dare to criticize and asked tentatively. Green flapped its wings like a fighter jet, whizzing around above Yilin's head for several times, and finally landed on Yilin's shoulder. The corners of Bat's mouth tilted to the side, showing a look of disdain. I thought you were doing something, but I didn't expect you to waste time in a garbage dump like this. Garbage dump? Yeah. Green's voice was a little louder. I'm not targeting anyone. Except for one of the things here that is a bit interesting, the rest are rubbish. Yes, the rubbish among rubbish. Green hasn't finished speaking yet. Yilin felt bad. He reflexively wanted to cover Green's foul mouth. But Yilin reacted slowly. After all, he was not agile. Green's words echoed in the sword tomb like a torrent and a tsunami. After a moment of silence, thousands of flying swords in the sword tomb suddenly erupted into angry roars. Buzz buzz dash. Amidst the shock-wave-like sound, Yilin covered her ears in pain, and blood overflowed from Yilin's fingers. Rumble. Following the sound of the sword, the surrounding mountain walls were shaking crazily, and scattered rocks fell from above. The sword tomb is boiling again. The flying swords of the ancestors, under Green's contempt, the anger value instantly exploded. The flying swords that could not be pulled out at all before, without being controlled by anyone, actually one after another took the initiative to leave the ground and hang in the air. Each flying sword was covered with a terrifying light. The flying swords turned their sword tips and spontaneously formed a complex sword formation in the air. At the same time, they pointed at the confused Yilin on the ground. Grass. At this moment, Yilin wanted to grab Green from his shoulders and stuff it back into his head. At this moment, Green had no consciousness of being the initiator. He was like a seasoned veteran driver, with his wings on his hips, grabbing Yilin's shoulders, and said with a smile, "Let's cross the garbage dump, youth." "You're still scolding?" Yilin's face changed, and the entire sword tomb was shaking crazily. Countless flying swords were preparing to pierce his heart with thousands of swords. He didn't care about complaining and activated his skills without saying a word. "I just used up one blood wool, and I didn't have time to replenish it. The super solution can't be used, and there is no need to use the super solution in this case. Then, the second solution, the third solution." Yilin's eyes turned red, and he grabbed two more translucent blood balls from the void with his palms, and slapped them on his chest. Although the panel was a mess, it had been 13 years since Yilin was reborn. He knew his body too well. After adding points as quickly as possible, he readjusted strength, agility, and spirit. Get to a position where you feel comfortable. Boom. The sword lights twisted into light curtains. When Yilin jumped up, the gorgeous light curtain swept from Yilin's feet. Yilin looked down from a high place and her heart skipped a beat. The hard rock ground became as thin as paper under the power of the sword array. The sword light swept away, leaving deep grooves and criss-crossing sword marks on it. At this moment, Yilin was like a little fly that had broken into a meat grinder. In the spread-out sword array, she looked so small and unworthy of mention. The flying swords of the ancestors seemed to be on fire, and Yilin was suspended in the air. They suddenly spread out a dense sword net in the sky, on the ground, front, back, left and right. Flying swords as flexible as swimming fish moved in and out of the sword net, surrounding Yilin. Yilin's body is covered with a layer of light red blood gauze armor. The light version of Bloodthirsty Disaster, the special effects are much more low-key than the normal use, and there is no scene of blood rising into the sky. You just said that everyone here is happy except... There. Green knew what Yilin wanted to ask, or in other words, he was waiting for Yilin to ask. The bat was very straightforward. The bat curled up into a finger and pointed somewhere in the sword tomb. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xuexi. Chapter 858. Yilin's 13 years were certainly not wasted time. All his skills are initially unlocked, transforming from skills to strengthening. This is the only way for every spiritual person to pass. During the rapid evolution process in the early stage, the apostles acquired skills through the trials of Zyle Garden. But this skill is an external force after all. Only by truly understanding the operation mode of the skill and performing secondary editing to a certain extent can it truly become the power of the apostle itself. In fact, Yilin started to try to unlock the skills much earlier. When he was still a newbie, Yilin developed a derivative application of shadow leaving traces from like a shadow, which was actually the prototype of unlocking the skill. However, at that time, his understanding of like a shadow was not deep enough to reach the point of lifting the ban. The direction of unlocking Bloodthirsty Disaster is very simple. Yilin split the effect of the skill and used the 5 stored blood will separately, which increased the flexibility of the skill and reduced the side effects and cooling time. In this way, this skill is no longer Yilin's last. The trump card has become a temporarily strengthened state for regular use. With the blessing of the 2 blood souls, Yilin maintained her strength and agility at a level that was worthy of breaking through the first layer of locks. At this moment, Yilin's strength, agility, spirit, and body measurements attributes are all broken at the same time, making her very imba. Analytical horizon. Yilin's eyes flashed, and between the blood-colored eyes, deep in the pupils, a ring composed of 1 and 0 numbers appeared silently. In an instant, the time around him almost stopped. Yilin's brain was running at high speed, and the operation of the sword array and the trajectory of the flying sword were clearly visible. One after another, dynamic prediction lines intertwined into a gorgeous network of light in Yilin's field of vision. The trajectory of the sword light was so dense that even a fly might not be able to get through some places, let alone a human being. Even if Yilin, whose hybrid bloodline was intact, really tried to break through the sword net, he would probably be chopped alive, let alone that he was a pure human race at the moment. Yilin lowered his head. Under the analytical perspective, he has plenty of time. He could even count how many more bloody holes there would be on his body if he stood still. Counted for a while. Yilin gave up. Because he discovered that if he really didn't move, it wouldn't be a matter of blood or not. In an instant, he would be strangled to pieces by the angry ancestors' resentment. So cruel. Wasn't it just that he was sprayed with a lewd comment? Why don't you talk about martial arts and have group fights? Alas, just human beings. Yilin sighed casually while deducing the loopholes in the sword formation, and a strange humanoid shadow appeared behind him. The face of anger, the body of 10 deaths. Yilin did not hesitate to throw away his life-saving skills when he needed to, and used 10 health locking opportunities to guarantee the bottom, which gave Yilin some confidence to break into the depths of the sword formation. Under the analytical vision, Yilin's brain was operating at overclocking speed, causing bursts of white steam to evaporate from his hair. Looking in the direction where Green's wings were rolling, behind the sword net, there was a seemingly ordinary stone tablet without words. The stone tablet was covered with mottled moss, as if it had gone through endless years. It's one of 11 ER's 10 messages. That is, the wordless monument. Sure enough, it's here. Bai Chuchu once said. One of the 10 wordless monuments left by the Qiju Empress is inside the Tianjian Gate. This is no secret. The wordless tablet is not a treasure either. After Yilin learned about this, she knew that she would come here one day. He searched every hilltop and finally found it in the Sword Tomb. Wenjian Mountain Sword Tomb and Wanjuan Mountain are both forbidden areas. Yilin had previously sensed danger inside and did not dare to enter at will. But now that he had finally found it, how could he just watch the clues slip away and return empty-handed? Yilin flicked his wrist, and the carpenter's knife appeared in his hand. Under the analytical field of view, a translucent track, calculated in advance, bends like lightning, passing through the slow light of the sword net in a thrilling manner. Found it? The only loophole in the sword net. This is what is called leaving a tightrope in everything. The young man smiled and followed the clear trajectory line in his field of vision that broke through the encirclement and threw out the carpenter's knife. Immediately afterwards, Yilin activated her skills. Shadow Kill unlocked the ban. Shadow Blade. Yilin's figure quickly shrank in mid-air and turned into a thin shadow, attached to the carpenter's knife. In the blink of an eye, the carpenter's knife turned into jet black, like an old prostitute walking among thousands of flowers, moving and following his heart, nimbly passing through thousands of sword nets. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, from Yilin opening the analytical vision to passing through the Wanjian sword net. The whole process happened in the blink of an eye and ended in the blink of an eye. The previous shadow kill only allowed the skill user to move quickly while attached to a plane. After the release of the ban, shadow killing can already be attached to moving objects such as flying knives and bullets, and can even use shadows to change the movement trajectory of objects. It is flexible and unpredictable. This method of lifting the ban tastes better when combined with like a shadow. In the past 13 years, Yilin has listened to Uncle Niu's stories when he had nothing to do. When he was free, he would think about unlocking skills or summarizing several knowledge systems. So far, he has been able to use his previous abilities in various ways. Swish swish. Yilin controlled the ancestral carpenter's knife. After crossing the line of fire, the sword network was intertwined behind him. It took him a moment to recover. They used trajectories that completely violated the principles of physics and ignored inertia. They turned around at the same time with almost no hesitation. With sword lights crackling in the sky, they formed a killing formation again and strangled the damn little flying knife again. Only a few hundred meters away from the wordless monument buried deep in the sword tomb, Yilin activated analytical vision again. Under the analytical vision, he calculated the flying speed of the flying sword, his speed, and all intertwined trajectories. Yilin discovered that at the current speed, he would be caught up to his buttocks by those flying swords first, smash his chrysanthemums, and die. 4 solutions. As the fourth blood essence was integrated into the body, the blood-colored gauze on Yilin's body became a little richer. Yilin's hand speed exploded, and she quickly added all the temporary attribute points included in the blood to the mental attributes. At this point, Yilin's mental attributes have reached the second level of mental lock again, reaching the limit of breaking the lock. Feeling the pleasure of something being stretched and swollen between her eyebrows, and breaking out of its shell, Yilin groaned, her eyes flashed with blood, and a blood shadow giant behind her with facial features similar to his was pulled up out of thin air. The giant, nearly 100 meters tall, almost crowded the inside of the sword tomb. Swords were flying all over the sky. Even if they had no consciousness of their own, they were still restrained by this sudden change, and the organized killer sword formation paused for a moment. Ni anti-Ji fist. The humanoid thought body behind Yulin opened its mouth and glared angrily, like a god of war standing tall on the sky and the earth. Following Yulin's punch movement, the thought body suddenly took action and punched out. As the thought body punched, a terrifying air current, like a hurricane, raged crazily in the small sword tomb. On the rock surface in the sword tomb, dense cracks burst out, and the broken stones were rolled up into the air. Flying sand, rocks, and dust were all integrated into this terrifying punch. Knee anti-left hook. Knee anti-right hook. Knee anti-upswing fist. Knee anti-Daquan. Knee anti-non-fusion fist. If you don't move, you will be done. If you move, you will shake the world. Yulin threw a combination of punches, as if hitting the opponent's sore spot. The remaining flying swords after the death of their ancestors trembled involuntarily in mid-air, and could no longer maintain a complete formation. They fell one after another like heavy rain. The mind-body is a pure mental attack, used to deal with the residual sword intention attached to the flying sword, and it is particularly effective as a tiger among sheep. This situation is like Yulin holding a master key, finding the keyhole and inserting it, inserting it, inserting it, inserting it correctly. Look, I told you they were all garbage. Green grabbed Yulin's shoulder with his claws and saw that Yulin was very proud after seeing that Yulin had disposed of the sword formation. It's all your fault. I wanted to talk nicely. Yulin angrily curled up her middle finger and thumb, subconsciously wanting to flick Green's forehead a few times like she usually taught the three mother spirits. But when Yulin remembered the identity of this big boss, he immediately retracted his hand and did not act rashly. The distance of 100 meters was reached in an instant, and another shadow blade was thrown. As if teleporting, Yulin arrived in front of the wordless stone tablet.